This is the voiceover for the PowerPoint for week 12 of Foundations of Literacy. We will, in this PowerPoint, discuss aspects of other people's words. We will also focus on an aspect of literacy instruction with providing strategies and helps for students in various areas of literacy instruction, including reading, writing, speaking, listening, and visual literacies. There are only two major objectives for this week. Obviously, we should, as students, be able to assess the educational experience and cultural context of Jenny and Donnie in other people's words. I also would like you to be able to articulate what a literacy-rich classroom looks like, specifically the curricular focus, including things like methods of instruction, strategies and activities, and extensions of learning. Last week, we reviewed our definition of literacy as determined at the beginning of the semester, and you were challenged with the idea of whether or not you felt that definition needed to be adapted or changed based on what we had been studying through the remainder of the semester. We also looked at ways to support literacy acquisition and talked about key strategies that are important. And I selected one in particular, literature circles, and I asked you to practice that activity in an online format with the first two chapters of Other People's Words. I hope that that was a beneficial experience, even though it was done online. The last thing we did is we investigated what it means to be a part of the urban Appalachian culture. So just briefly, a couple things about literature circles, things that I'd like you to sort of keep in mind. Remember that it works really well for small groups of students to discuss a piece of literature. And remember, I say literature here, but I mean a type of text. You can use a form of a literature circle even within a science class or a social studies class. You might tweak the roles that students play a little bit, but assigning them each an aspect of an investigation into a text and then giving them opportunities to get together and discuss it is very, very valuable. It helps them to engage in critical thinking and reflection, and of course collaboration is key, and students need more opportunity to do that. And so what they do with this process is construct meaning with other readers, and it guides them really into a deeper understanding of the text. So with regard to other people's words, and I'm not going to read all of these slides to you, and there is a form of the PowerPoint without a voiceover, so you clearly can listen to this if you'd like to and then revisit the other copy just to sort of dig in a little bit more. But a couple of things with regard to why this look into other people's words is so important. And that's because a lot of times minority peoples are stereotyped and they're seen as deficient in a number of ways, and you can see them listed here. And this view of students has an impact on their education. It sort of predisposes teachers or other educators that the students, maybe not the regular classroom teacher, but others with whom the students will have contact in the school. If the children are perceived through a lens that is incorrect, and those things are projected on students, it really does affect their educational opportunity. There are several key points that I think we need to highlight with regard to other people's words and what we can learn from that. The main three that I have noted here on this slide are key things that we need to keep in mind no matter where we teach. And that is that all communities have appropriate cognitive abilities, though they may be different. And we can't make judgments based on where a person comes from or their background or their culture and assume things about their cognitive ability. We also need to recognize some key things about language variation. When you're talking English language learners, of course, there are some very specific differences with regard to language, but we also have regions of the country where there is a unique dialect that the people use there. And unfortunately in school, we have this idea that there's a perfect language or there's standard English, and that if these students don't talk that way or use language in the same fashion, then we make judgments about their abilities, and we have to really be cautious of that. The other thing is that we should not make judgments about abilities or disabilities based on their socio-cultural setting or context from which these students come. We can't say that our particular group, our particular mindset, our particular way of doing things is the best. It might be the best for us, but we have to really reserve judgment when we're looking at our students and seeing that those things are probably different for them. And again, it doesn't mean that they're deficient, and we need to really be cautious as educators not to make judgments based on those things. All learning takes place within a social context, and to understand the process of learning, one must also specify and see to understand the social context within which learning occurs. We don't learn in a vacuum. We learn as we interact with texts, with other people, with scholars, with information, and that's the social context that is referred to here. We need to remember, and I mentioned this just previously, that each of our students brings to the classroom an individual cultural identity. And this cultural identity influences the way that they learn. So in order to most effectively provide an equitable learning environment for all of our students, we need to understand from which context and in which context each of our students learns. How could Donnie and Timmy learn to read and write when neither of their parents did? What roles, if any, did his parents' non-literacy have to play on Donnie's difficulties in school? Contemplate this as you think ahead and read the remaining chapters of the text. To what extent does Donnie's social context, his home environment, influence his lack of literacy? For this week, and our reading in chapters 3, 4, and 5 of Other People's Words, I'm not going to have you read all 3 chapters. You probably already noted that from the different things on our class blackboard. You've been assigned a particular chapter. So what I'd like you to do is read that chapter and then click the link to the especially provided PowerPoint under week 12 in our weekly plans on Blackboard. And there are a number of questions there. The questions are the same across the board for whichever chapter you have been assigned to. And so what I want you to do is click in one of the boxes. There are sufficient blocks for everyone who's assigned to a particular chapter, and answer the question based on what you read in that chapter. The idea of this, or the goal of this, is to get a more comprehensive idea of what Jenny and Donnie experienced with regard to literacy instruction and support. Towards the end of the week, what you'll do is read some of the answers from the other chapters, and then you'll write a comprehensive paragraph that sort of summarizes all 3 chapters with regard to the literacy instruction and support that Donnie and his mom were given. Further instruction is on the PowerPoint itself, the one that you'll drop your answers into. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have additional questions. Now, switching gears a little bit, I just want to talk just very quickly, and again, you can read through all of this stuff on the PowerPoint that doesn't have the voiceover, but I want us to consider and examine just briefly the development of literacy. So when we're considering our role as a teacher and a supporter of student learning when it comes to literacy, we need to weigh out several things. What kinds of methods of instructions we're going to use, the strategies and activities that we're going to put within our lesson frame to support our instruction, and also which extensions of learning we're going to provide for our students. Those things that will most effectively assist. So there are a number of different types of instruction. Usually we think of lecture, okay, that's more expository, but you'll notice here that there are several different types. And so as you're thinking about your instruction in the classroom with regard to literacy, or just with sharing the content you're sharing, what types of instruction will you incorporate? Will it be direct instruction? Will it be a discovery instruction? Will it be interactive? So there are a number of different types that you can use. Along with the types of instruction, you'll need to consider what kind of strategies and activities. And we've talked about this on a number of occasions this semester. I've had you examine different websites and encourage you to be thinking about different types of strategies and activities. If you've not yet started some type of a binder or a folder where you can keep, if nothing else, a list of links, or if you can print things out and have them readily available to you, it's really beneficial for you as you begin framing your lessons. But remember that good readers use a variety of strategies, and this involves making meaning of the text that they're reading, regardless of the content. And so we want to provide strategies that help them demonstrate that they understand or comprehend what they're reading. So there are different types of strategies, those that make connections, those that help them visualize, those that invite them to infer or to question, those that help them determine what's important in a text, and those that help them synthesize what they're learning to other texts, other environments, those kind of things. So with regard to strategies and activities, and I'm not going to talk in depth about each of these, but I highlight in the following slides the different types of activities and strategies, those that make connections and visualize. And then you'll notice here in red, it says text to self, text to text, text to world. Those are the kinds of connections we want them to make. With regard to strategies and activities that allow them to question and infer, we want all readers to ask questions as they read. When they ask these questions, it engages them more with the text and it helps them to think more deeply. So make sure that the strategies and activities that you're providing for your students within your lesson frames include. Another type of strategy or activity helps them to synthesize or to focus in on what's important. Remember when we were discussing Bloom's taxonomy, we talked about the lower levels of learning, just knowing things and understanding things. Those are the most basic. But then as they advance, we want them to be able to apply and to analyze those things, to evaluate them and to synthesize them or create using those things. So think in those terms with regard to the types of activities and strategies you're providing. Now, normally if we were in class, I would invite you to do some investigation. We are not going to do an activity as a closure for this important aspect, but I want you to keep this in mind for the future. So there's a couple of things here to consider, types of strategies, spending some time investigating different websites, finding strategies and activities that address all those different aspects that we just focused our attention on. And then here too, I do remind you to start a folder or a binder where you can start saving these things and to keep in mind the higher levels of learning. So just as a reminder, when we're considering our role as teacher and supporter, especially when it comes to the development of literacy, we need to weigh out methods of instruction, strategies and activities, and also extensions of learning. Now, extensions of learning may be something with which you're not overly. An extension activity is an activity that extends the learning. Okay, oftentimes you'll have students in the classroom that finish the regular activity and they've done all of the worksheets that you've had, or they've done the project, and so they're sitting there and they're looking for something more. These types of activities are very helpful for those students that are gifted, those students that finish things quickly, but all students can do different types of things that extend or deepen or enhance their learning. It's sort of an idea of an enrichment project. So remember that use of strategies and activities and extensions is intended to make knowledge and skills more accessible to all the students. It also is intended to provide a multimodal exposure to the knowledge and to further engage them. So as you keep that in mind, think about how you might extend learning or provide opportunities at least to extend learning for these students. The next few slides provide examples of extension of learning. And as you have opportunity, glance at them and see how they might fit into your classroom, or something similar might fit into your classroom as you think about ways to deepen learning for your students. If you just do a simple Google search about extensions of learning in social studies, in math, that you'll find a ton of different ideas. I had originally hoped to include the watching of this movie Euler as part of our in-class study of other people's words. This school is nestled in the community or the location where Jenny and Donnie lived. And it's well worth the watch. I think you'll find it quite interesting, but I didn't want to make it as part of the requirements for this week because it does require an hour of your time to watch the movie and then an opportunity to think through some of what you've observed. So instead, what I thought I would do is provide it as an extra credit opportunity. The assignment will be worth 15 additional points to be added to your total points for the end of the semester. So you can choose to do this or not do this. If you just want to skim through it and not do the assignment, if you have opportunity, as I mentioned, the watching of the movie would be very beneficial to your understanding of not only other people's words, but the types of environments from which our students may come. Those students that we'll have in our classroom. So basically the idea here is to watch the movie and then follow the directions on the following 2 pages to locate the movie. It is actually housed within our library, and all you have to do is follow the different links and you'll be able to see it at your convenience. And then what I'd like you to do is to actually write a short essay, just your typical 5-paragraph essay with an introduction, a conclusion, and 3 or more paragraphs of bodies. And so the types of things that I want you to address in this reflection, I've provided you a couple of key points. You don't have to address all of these, but select maybe 3 or 4 that you might want to think about as you watch the movie to make notation, or at least where you find them in the movie so you can go back and refer to them. And then write a short essay that lets me know first that you've seen the movie and also communicates some key takeaways and things that you've learned. This slide shows you where to find it as well as the next. Okay, that concludes everything with regard to content for this week. I did want to just take a minute to highlight some of these things, the due dates, etc. for your other people's words. Chapters 3, 4, and 5 assignment is here. You'll notice the literacy history assignment. You should have your rough draft of your first part back to you in the next day or 2. But your interviewee's history is due on Sunday. If you'll notice, I'm hoping that you can have a completed final draft of everything together. It's just a draft for review, for peer review, and for my final review. The completed final is not due until the end of the month, so we still have some time on that. I will be uploading a short video for this also. There are a couple of things I want to emphasize to make sure that you have all the pieces and parts you need for this assignment, and hopefully to answer any questions or concerns that you have for this. You should be reading your Let Me Tell You About the Book I've Been Reading book as we approach the end of the semester. You will have a written portion of sort of a summary of the book that you'll share with your 5 to 7 minute book talk. My thought at this point is that I will have you submit videos. So I will provide a little how-to video for you on how to complete that and then how to upload it effectively. I also am very open to the idea of doing a Collaborate live class, or a couple of them at times that might be beneficial to you, where you can actually present it online and then you don't have to worry about the video process. If you are interested in that, could you just shoot me an email and let me know that that is the case? I'll also put that information on the announcement for next week so that we can finalize exactly how we want to do this. And then the extra credit opportunity that I just explained to you, it's not due until the 1st of May. Please refer to slide 23 of this PowerPoint for details on that. And then if you have any questions, please know again that I'm here to assist in any way that I can. Take care and stay well.